Hey everyone, it's me, Ben, or GNC Centric, and today I'm going to do a video about how I, a lesbian, believed for many years that I was a gay trans man. Okay, so the very first thing to understand is that I learned about gay homosexuality between males before I joined the queer community, so for them I understood that it was a male and a male. Then I joined the queer community, then I learned what lesbians were, and I learned that lesbians were someone who identifies as a woman who's attracted to other people who identify as women. So everything got gendered instead of sex-based, right? So on some level, I thought that, like, homosexual male relationships were actually gay. But then on another level, I thought that if I ID as a man, I can be in one of those. I wasn't like, if I ID as a man, that I'm a gay man. I thought, like, if I ID as a man and get enough surgery to pass so that a gay guy can be attracted to me, at least superficially, like with my clothes on or something, then I could be a gay man. I don't know. And also what I learned about, when I learned about what a lesbian was, the only lesbians I knew were, like, non-binary women who called themselves pansexual but only dated females. Like, at the time, I couldn't, like, identify that, but now that I look back, I can. And, like, MTFs, so, like, males who call themselves lesbians. Those were, like, the only people I knew who were lesbians for, like, my teenage years. Like, the first, lesbian I ever met was a trans woman who came to give us sex ed at one of the, like, youth groups I used to hang out at. Yeah. So because I had dysphoria, the fact that I hated my female body was, like, unquestioned and acceptable. So hating my female body, being in denial of being female, being in denial of, like, having a female sexuality, and just, like, hating my body was totally acceptable and nobody questioned it. So it made me fine with hating being female and thinking that I was a male. Everybody around me said that was fine, that was normal. So I didn't feel sexual attraction or arousal until I was 18, because I was on, like, really strong antidepressants before that. And so you have to keep in mind that, like, most of what I'm saying in this video is, like, before 18. So I didn't have actual sexual feelings to base anything on. Everything was, like, psychological and emotional, of, like, me interpreting stuff and, like, feeling things, even if there was no, like, physical feelings involved. So because of this, I had no sexual connection to my body, obviously, right? So everything was, like, in my mind. My body was, like, a completely separate issue. And it wasn't until I was 18 that I learned that females could orgasm, or that I learned, like, what the clitoris is. So maybe keep that in mind as you hear about what I expected to happen during sex. So in the back of my mind, I always had this feeling that I would end up with a man, that it was inevitable. I don't know why exactly, but it was, like, in the back of my mind. It was never something that I, like, spoke about or addressed or, like, vocalized. It just seemed that way. So because of this, like, the concept of me being a female with a male was, like, completely disgusting and disturbing to me. But the idea that I could be FTM, so a male with another male, that wasn't straight, and it wasn't an unequal power, it was more equal. So I was like, that makes sense for me. I read a lot of books as, like, a kid and a teenager. So, at, like, 13, I started to, like, try and read romance novels. And I read some straight romance novels, and they were just, like, disgusting to me because of, like, the power imbalances and also just, like, the character dynamics. And I always related more to the male characters than the female characters. So I, like, stopped reading that stuff. But to me, that was proof that I wasn't heterosexual, because I couldn't see myself as that female. So after that, my obsession with gay romance began. And I say obsession because it was an obsession. I would read, like, 2 or 3 books a day, like novels, like several hundred pages, and I some of the series that I really liked, I knew them so well that I could like flip to the chapter where like the first kiss happens or something like that. Like I knew them very, very well. So I became like, I felt like I had a connection to these characters and a connection to the romance stories that they were going through. And I felt like if I had a connection to that, that was proof that I was a gay man, right? So I kind of became obsessed with like the romance and the sex in the novels, and I really internalized it. And now that I'm like an adult, I realized that all of the novels I was reading were written by females for females. Like 99% of the books I was reading. So like everything was like unrealistic fantasy to begin with. And I was like, I can be a gay man based on these like romance. Yeah. So I thought that like after being on testosterone long enough and after getting a mastectomy, that I would eventually like pass and I would be good enough for a gay man. Like literally, I had like, I can't believe looking back, I had such a small, like such horrible self-esteem, like such a horrible view of myself. I just wanted to be like good enough to be a bottom, and I thought I would have sex like always facing away and like never facing my partner, and I would like only ever have anal because that's like what I thought a gay guy would want, and that like I never, like I didn't know what orgasm the females could orgasm, so I was like, I'll never orgasm, and like I won't have a penis, but as long as he's happy, I'll be happy. Like that was what I was like looking for. That was like, when I grow up, that's what I'll have and I'll be happy. So it kind of became that in my subconscious, the idea of inevitably being with a man, I just switched it from being with a straight man to being with a gay man, and this gave me some kind of a sense of control, I think, on some level. I was exposed to a lot of porn.
It's 3:30.
As a teen, and so a significant number of my trans and queer friends were in sex work, what basically meant they were like cam girls, or they did porn like together with each other as friends, or they were escorts. And so they were always like retweeting on Twitter or reblogging on Tumblr GIFs and videos and pictures of porn. And also like just people in general were like kink positive and porn positive and sex positive. So I just had friends who were like reblogging porn all the time. And this did two things for me. One, it really internalized the feeling for me that like penetration is sex. Like that's what the sex is the penetration. So that was an idea that took me really like long years to get rid of that idea. It also affected my dysphoria, because the more I could visualize penises more clearly, the more I could visualize a penis clearly, the worse my dysphoria around not having one became. So I would get like a phantom penis, like hallucinations, and like of course this was proof that I'm male in my mind, and like if this happened after looking at like gay porn, I was like, oh well, this is proof that I'm like attracted to gay men, right? And so because of like this penis thing, I kind of became like obsessed with penises, like in a very peculiar, unusual way, because I didn't find them attractive, but I felt like I was supposed to have one and I needed one. I don't know. It was very strange. So, but that really skewed like, so I was experiencing sexuality like as a non-female basically, or I don't even know if it was sexuality, but just everything was like in the lens of like, I'm not a female. So this is something I only became aware of a few months ago. It's called Misattribution of Arousal. I'll put a link. But it's basically when you experience something or you feel something and you interpret it as arousal, but it's not arousal. So when I was like sexting guys all the time as a teenager, I never got like turned on, but I would get like shortness of breath and like sweaty palms and like my heart would be beating faster, but like that's anxiety. I literally had anxiety because I was exposing myself to like new sexual situations that made me like slightly uncomfortable, and so I had anxiety about it, and I read my signs of anxiety as like based on my romance novels, I was like, oh, when they steal your breath and you're like, everything is, you know, uptight, it's like you're aroused, so I don't know, like based on my romance novels, what I experienced I thought was arousal. It wasn't. There's a few things I wrote down. Yeah, so like anxiety about a new sexual behavior or new sexual activity with like sexting someone online. I got attention and I got like affirmation about like my gender identity and stuff. So that like got me excited in like an emotional way, right? And also pleasing someone. Like it made me very satisfied and comfortable and happy to please someone. And I thought like that's what you're supposed to do with a sexual partner, is like please them. So I was like, this is proof that like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So at that point, what I experienced as attraction was just like dissociation and fantasy. And the fantasy was so unrealistic and so romantic, and it was all in my head because the only sexual things I was doing was sexting, so everything was like in my mind, right? It was all how I was imagining it. So it was like very unhealthy and unrealistic. And then even after I experienced sexual arousal, I was like in this pattern of like sexting this one guy, and we were like friends and stuff, and so I kept like sexting him after I experienced arousal. And if I dissociated enough to the point where I literally, in my mind, I had like forgotten the real world and I was like in a place in my mind where I was a male and this guy was a male, I would feel something in my body. But I really think that was just like because of the dissociation and the fantasy. It wasn't like if I had actually seen this guy in front of me, the whole thing would have stopped. Do you know what I mean? Like it was literally all just in my mind. So it was like very unhealthy and unrealistic. So if you haven't caught on, all of this is like based on internalized lesbophobia. I will explain. So I hated my female body. I hated all female bodies. Anything to do with like female experience of sexuality was like out of my mind and like irrelevant to me. The concept of like lesbians was like always out of my mind. It was something I couldn't even think about. It was something that was like irrelevant to me, which I recognize now is just denial. So nobody challenged these feelings for me. In the queer community, it was like, oh, well, that just means you're trans. But nobody challenged that, like, this could just be, like, you hate being female because you can't accept that you're a female homosexual on some level. I don't know. Like, nobody challenged or me. And nobody, they talk all the time in the trans community about, like, being your true self and stuff. But, like, nobody gives you the tools for self-exploration. They just give you labels and they give you, like, rhetoric, and they give you like experiences that you should find similar, and there you go. Like they don't give you tools for anything to do with exploring the self or like self-actualization other than to like copy someone else basically. Yeah. So the concept of like being with a man is inevitable is like, it's part of compulsory heterosexuality. I'm gonna put a link to Adrienne Rich's essay, Compulsory Heterosexuality, you guys. So yeah, I, despite like feeling that I was supposed to be with a man, I changed it from a straight man to a gay man, because then that took out the like heterosexual possibility of babies. Like not literally, of course, if it was possible I could have gotten pregnant or something if I had actually like done that, but like in my mind I was like, with two gay men, the whole thing of like being a mother is like not even there, so I don't have to worry about that, which again is like another way that I was in denial of my femalehood. I think that this was just like my mind finding ways like very slowly over time to cope and make a situation where I was with a man sexually a survivable situation. Yeah. So I think that what I just described is not unique, because I'm going to put a link to a Twitter thread or two in the bio here, in the description, because I know like at least 6 lesbians who are detransitioned or re-identified who used to believe or live or act that like they were gay trans men because they believed they were. And then like after detransitioning or re-identifying, or they realized they were homosexual females, or they realized they were homosexual females and that's why they detransitioned. That was kind of what happened with me. And I think that there is a significant number of trans-identified females right now who are in relationships with men, who are on Grindr, who are having sex with men, who their entire relationship is based on dissociation. Their entire sexuality is based on dissociation. It's extremely unhealthy, and I worry a lot about them. Like, I know some people are going to find this offensive, but I think there's a lot of trans-identified females who are actually lesbians who have so much internalized lesbophobia that they've gone from, like, I'm a female who's attracted to females, even if it's, like, in the back of their mind something that they can't acknowledge, to the very opposite end as far as they could go to I'm a male who likes males. As far as you can get from lesbians is gay men, right? As far as you can get from ever interacting with another female body is being a gay man, right? And also, like, gay men, there's, like, a bit of a, like, we hate female bodies, vaginas are gross, that kind of thing. Like, when you hang out with gay men and you already hate your female body, they're, like, reinforcing your dysphoria, and you feel like, oh, this is right. They feel the same way as I do. So I think there's probably a lot of lesbians who are in that situation right now who, were they in a different environment, they wouldn't be acting that way, or experiencing those feelings, I'm guessing. So the one thing that helped me so much was I went to Michigan Family Reunion in 2017, and there was just so many butch lesbians everywhere. They weren't, like, trying to be masculine, or they weren't, like, trying to be trans men. They were just naturally butch, and, like, they weren't, like, putting thought into it, or, like, it wasn't an act or a costume. And I realized, like, that's just like me. I'm just naturally like that. And then seeing all of these, like, lesbians of, like, different ages, seeing that they're, like, happy and they're okay and everything is fine. And also, in that festival, there was no males allowed, so a lot of the females would walk around without their shirts on. And just seeing these lesbians who were so comfortable with their bodies, it had a big impact on me. Yeah. So it helped me a lot. Like, the number one thing I would recommend for somebody who is, like, struggling to realize if they're a lesbian or not is to, like, hang out with some lesbians. Yeah. So that's the end of my video. If you have thoughts or questions, put them in the comments. I'm also always on Twitter if you want to strike up a conversation about this. Again, I know that this video will probably offend some people, but I'm just relating, like, my experiences, my thoughts, my opinions, trying not to take it too personally. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Okay, bye.